Wait, don't move past this moment just yet. Something quiet, something almost invisible, has already begun shifting in your world, and you weren't meant to miss it. Because today, without you knowing, your soulmate spoke about you. Not casually. Not by accident. It felt personal. And what they said carried a weight that lingered long after the conversation ended. The kind of words that don't just disappear into the air. The kind that stay, echoing softly in someone's mind, reshaping how they see everything. Pause for a second. What if this isn't random? What if, at the exact moment you're hearing this, something is aligning behind the scenes? Because when someone speaks about you with intention, with depth, it creates a ripple. A subtle movement in the unseen layers of connection. And today, that ripple reached further than you realize. They didn't just mention your name. They described a feeling. A moment. A memory that, until now, they couldn't fully explain, but suddenly, it made sense to them. And here's where it gets interesting. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't polished. It was real. There was a pause in their voice, a slight hesitation, as if they were choosing their words carefully. Not because they were unsure, but because what they felt was deeper than language could easily hold. Have you ever tried to explain something that your heart understands, but your mind struggles to put into sentences? That's where they were. And in that space, something meaningful slipped through. They admitted something. Not loudly. Not dramatically. But enough for someone listening to notice, and feel that something about you is different. That your presence, even when you're not there, carries a kind of impact that stays with them. Let that sink in for a moment. Because this isn't about grand gestures or sudden confessions. This is about the quiet truth that reveals itself when someone stops pretending, even just for a second. And today, they did. But here's the part no one talks about. When someone finally speaks from that place of honesty, it doesn't just affect them. It starts changing the energy between you. Slowly. Subtly. Almost like a shift you can't see, but you can feel. Maybe you've sensed it already. A strange calm. Or an unexpected thought crossing your mind at the exact moment you weren't thinking about them. That's not coincidence. That's connection responding. But don't rush to define it. Not yet. Because what they shared today wasn't the final message. It was the beginning of something opening. A door that had been closed, not locked, just untouched. And now? It's slightly open. Just enough for something new to enter. Stay with me here. Because what happens next doesn't come from forcing anything. It comes from understanding why this moment matters. Why today, out of all days, they chose to speak. There's a reason timing feels so precise when something meaningful is unfolding. And if you listen closely, not with your ears, but with your awareness, you'll start to notice the pattern. This wasn't just about remembering you. It was about realizing something about you. Something they hadn't fully seen before. And once someone sees that, they can't unsee it. So the question is, what exactly did they understand today that changed everything? Don't answer too quickly. Because the truth is, it's still forming. Still evolving. And in the next moment, when everything feels like it's about to settle, that's when the real shift begins. Hold on, something just deepened, and if you feel it, don't ignore it. Because what they understood today didn't stay contained within that one moment. It followed them. Quietly. Into the spaces where they're usually distracted. Into the silence where thoughts become clearer than noise. And suddenly, what they said about you earlier started to feel incomplete. Like they had only touched the surface. Let me ask you something. Have you ever realized something about someone, hours after the conversation ended? That delayed clarity, that quiet realization that hits when everything else slows down? That's exactly where they are now. And this is where it shifts. Because now, it's no longer about what they said. It's about what they didn't say. The words they held back, not out of fear, but because they weren't ready to fully face them yet. But readiness has a way of catching up. And when it does, it doesn't ask for permission. It reveals. In fragments. In flashes. In moments where everything suddenly feels undeniable. They started replaying the conversation. Not just the words, but the feeling behind those words. And something unexpected happened. They noticed how their voice changed when they spoke about you. Softer. More intentional. Almost like they were protecting something, even without realizing it. Now pause right here. Why would someone unconsciously protect a feeling? Unless that feeling means more than they've been willing to admit. This is the part most people miss. The quiet signals. The small shifts. The unspoken weight behind simple sentences. Because what they're experiencing right now isn't confusion. It's clarity trying to rise. And clarity doesn't arrive loudly. It comes gently, but once it's there, it doesn't leave. You might not see it yet. You might not hear from them right away. But something inside them has already crossed a line. Not a visible one. A deeper one. The kind that separates thinking about you from understanding what you truly are to them. And once someone reaches that point, everything changes. Not instantly. Not dramatically. But inevitably. Let this settle in your mind. Because this moment you're in right now isn't just about waiting. It's about alignment. Your energy, your awareness, your presence, they're all part of this shift. Even if you've been silent. Even if nothing obvious has happened yet. There's movement. Subtle, but real. And here's something you weren't expecting. The person they were speaking to earlier? They noticed. Not the full story, but enough to feel that something about you carries significance. That your name, your presence, holds a different tone. And sometimes, it takes an outside perspective for someone to realize what's right in front of them. So now, they're not just reflecting alone. They're becoming aware that others can feel it too. And that realization? It changes how seriously they take what they feel. Take a breath. Because this is where things begin to accelerate, not in action, but in awareness. And awareness is always the first step before anything becomes real. If you've made it this far, there's a reason you didn't scroll away. You can feel it, can't you? Something subtle, but undeniable. If this moment resonates even slightly, let it stay with you. You don't need to force anything, just notice it. And if you feel like sharing what crossed your mind while listening, or even a single word that describes your feeling, leave it below. Sometimes, expression brings clarity in ways silence cannot. Because what's unfolding here isn't random content. It's a mirror. A reflection of a connection that is slowly revealing its depth. And we're not at the surface anymore. We're just beginning to see what's underneath. But wait. Before you assume you know where this is going, there's one realization they haven't faced yet. One truth that changes the direction of everything. And when it finally reaches them, nothing will feel the same again. Something just clicked, and it didn't ask for permission. It arrived quietly, almost like a thought that didn't belong to them at first, but the more they sat with it, the more undeniable it became. Because now, it's no longer about remembering you, or even understanding you. It's about recognizing what you mean to them. And that realization? It changes everything. Not in a dramatic, overwhelming way, but in a steady, irreversible shift that reshapes how they see their own path. Let me explain this carefully. There comes a moment when someone stops looking at a connection as just a passing feeling, and starts seeing it as something that holds direction. Purpose. Weight. And today, they touched that moment. They didn't plan to. They didn't go searching for it. But it found them anyway. In a quiet pause, in a gap between thoughts, in a space where distractions faded just enough for truth to rise. And when it did, they felt it. Not as excitement. Not as confusion. But as clarity. A calm, grounded knowing that what they feel about you isn't temporary. It isn't something that will fade with time or distance. It's something that has been building, layer by layer, waiting for the right moment to be seen fully. And now that they've seen it, they can't go back to not knowing. Pause here for a second. Because this is the part most people underestimate. When clarity replaces uncertainty, decisions begin to form. Not rushed decisions. Not impulsive actions. But quiet, internal shifts that slowly guide behavior, choices, direction. And right now, they are standing at that edge. Not the edge of action, but the edge of realization. They're asking themselves questions they didn't dare to ask before. Why does your presence feel different from everyone else? Why do their thoughts return to you, even when they try to focus on something else? Why does speaking about you feel meaningful in a way they can't explain to others? These aren't surface-level thoughts. These are the beginnings of understanding something deeper. Something real. And here's what makes this moment so important. They're no longer trying to ignore it. Before, it was easier to stay distracted. To keep things undefined. To treat the connection like something that didn't need to be fully understood. But now, that option is fading. Because once truth becomes visible, even in the smallest way, it asks to be acknowledged. And they're starting to acknowledge it. Slowly. Carefully. but genuinely. You may not see immediate changes. You may not hear sudden words or clear explanations. But inside them, something has already shifted direction. And direction always leads somewhere. Stay with this feeling. Because what's unfolding isn't about chasing an outcome. It's about witnessing a transformation. The kind that begins internally, before it ever shows itself externally. And if you've been wondering whether this connection was one-sided, or uncertain, or incomplete, then let this moment answer you without forcing anything. Something meaningful was shared today. Not just in words, but in awareness. And awareness is the beginning of everything real. But don't close this chapter yet. Because even now, as they sit with this realization, there's one final layer